All right, let's get started here. We're sitting at around 68.40 SPX. The gap that I was watching last week, for the most part, would be considered filled. This was from, I believe, January 5th, and the gap low was 68.58.
Since the days, actually, before the Bolshevik, from the Bolshevik.
Got a pivot at 68.60. Two things I'm watching is also VIX has gapped up. We're at about a high of 20.66 on VIX and a low of, well, the gap is way below at 15.95. Not to mention the 930 gap is a VIX gap down, and it's about 0.7 points from here to fill that gap. So I'll be watching for an up move, potentially a down move too. So right now I don't have anything high probability. The primary reason why I'm watching 68.60 is, one, that was the gap low, and two, there's some dealer negative positioning there, and currently we're in this massive cluster of positive dealer positioning, which is really tough to escape. It's one small negative positioning at 68.45. Yeah, I have no certainty as to where this will go. I want to think this retraces upwards a little bit, but I don't have any real conviction in that. I would like to short this. There is an SMT that I'm watching, the divergent highs in ES and NQ. And if the risk can get small enough, I would definitely take a shot, but I still like it to visit that pivot first. The SMT did not hold, so I'm definitely not shorting this bad boy. Let's see that test at 69.60, which is about 5 points higher from here. and see what happens. Oh, I just realized that I have a typo in my live notes there. I meant 6860 as a pivot, not 6890. The money straddles at like 50 points. The opening was 43. So that'll take us to 93. Yeah, so there's a lot at 68.90. There's a lot of stuff there. The straddle highs there. So the at-the-money straddle is pricing in a move to 68.93. Since the straddle is 50 points and we opened up at about 68.43-ish. There's also a low, previous low there, a swing low from January 14th, which, and the gap high, the gap open from January 5th is there. So that normally signifies that there's a reasonable amount of liquidity there. That would have been a reasonable short there. 68.55. Back down to 40. Down to 35. Let's see where this thing wants to go first. I'm in no rush to take any trades right now, but I kind of like the short there. Risk is much higher than it typically is. POC is here. I'm not seeing much here. I mean, you could have scalped the range for the most part, but I don't see anything high probability from how I typically view markets. So I'm not inclined to take any risk here. Gold is way up. US 10-year yield is way up. What I would like to see is a spike down in SPX. Maybe to 68.25. And that would cause a VIX gap fill up towards 20.29. And then from there, I would like to see a retracement of the downward move over the weekend, over the long weekend. Here's the VIX gap up that I mentioned earlier. And then the massive gap from the Friday close. And SPX, we're at 68.46 right now. Just hovering around here. We got that gap. This is, I would consider this gap filled, even though it's a gap on a gap. We will eventually revisit it. I would have expected it to revisit today, but I would like to see a run down towards 68.25, both from a net dealer positioning perspective and also structurally. You can see the swing low is at 68.25 there. So we'll see what happens. I want to give this a shot short, but the risk is so large. It's going to take a while to get 68.25. $68.25. Yeah, I ended up taking the short here. Now let's see where it goes. I don't know how much room I'll give it. Okay, I want to see 68.25. If we can see 68.25, that's perfect. Which is about 15 points from here. Huh. This would be it right here. So 68.60 is about 68.25-ish. Close enough anyways. ES basically rejected VWAP. VIX is about to fill that gap that I had shown earlier towards 20.3. Right now we're currently at 19.9. If we do fill, I'm out. We have not filled yet. We're currently sitting around 19.93 on the VIX. Would be ideal for it to fill, and we get a run down 10-15 points. We're likely waiting for the Supreme Court decision on the tariffs. Apparently, there's going to be one item related to tariffs. Wait a one. So VIX is actually pumping up at 20 now, even though price action is not following. This is very interesting. I suspect we're going to get a vol spike here. And then a crush. Likely generated from the tariff news. So we'll see. So right now, VIX is hovering at 20.05. SPX has basically done nothing, or ES. NQ, like we're talking about a 70-point range, maybe a 100-point range. Some of the candles are about 70 points large on a 5-minute time frame, so there's a chance that I'm going to get grilled on this short here. VIX is still running up. Well, we're at 20.02. Seems to be paused here. We're basically stuck between 68.55 and 68.35, which is the sandwich. If you look at the live dealer strikes, which I transition to right now, just for a brief look, you can see 68.55, 68.35, and SPX is 68.37 and 68.56. So the influence, we've basically been contained between these two levels in this negative dealer strike range. So let's see where this takes us. There's no reason for me to close. Volatility suggests that there's going to be some whippy action. VIX is at 20.07. Supreme Court doesn't rule on Trump's tariffs Tuesday. Amazing. It's twice now. Now, will that be bad news or good news? I would like to see a slight vol spike, run down, and then a pump back up. So, with the Supreme Court not ruling on Trump's tariffs today, we had similar news. We had similar news last week, and the market had pumped right after. So today, we get the news that the Supreme Court doesn't rule on Trump's tariffs, and we are starting to move down. So the difference is OPEX. OPEX was basically hitting the market to some degree, and post OPEX, new positionings, and some analysts like Chem Carson, he would identify this week as the start of the window of weakness, or the window of non-strength. There's still one move down here, but I think I'm going to take this off while I can. I wish I had multiple positions. So we'll see where we go. We're at 68.34 right now on SPX. I would like 10 more points. But I can now move my stop loss to break even because I do not expect this to come back up. There are no imbalances. If you're an ICT trader, there's no fair value gaps here that need to be retested on the 5-minute time frame. There is a volume imbalance at 68.75, which we could come up and tick, but I wouldn't expect that until we're vol crushing a little. And we're almost there. We're at 20.13, and the gap is at, gap fill would technically be 20.3. So the news says Supreme Court doesn't rule on Trump's tariffs Tuesday. The US Supreme Court declined to rule on Trump's tariffs on Tuesday, implying that a challenge to his signature economic policy will likely take at least another month to resolve. The court is ready to take a 4-week recess, and according to its customary procedures for issuing decisions, the next possible date for a tariff ruling is February 20th. Now that's interesting because seasonality would state that February 20th is OPEX, and after OPEX, or even after the VIX expiration, which would be the third Wednesday AM expiration, after that day, the VIX would be free to move, and after OPEX, the SPX would be free to move for the most part. So with that being said, if we do move seasonally after that OPEX, at that Feb OPEX, we typically move down. So it's just something to pay attention to. Just interesting that the dates seem to all align. Yeah, I now like the look to about 68.30, 68.25. If we can get there, then in theory, my target should hit. But definitely not looking that way at the moment. I'll stay in this trade though. The with the stop loss move to break even, I don't really have to worry about the trade. I can work on the GIF up gab here and just keep talking without really paying attention to the trade. It's definite possibility that my stop loss will be hit. It's unfortunate. I would have definitely considered taking profit there, but I was in the middle of talking. Didn't take it. Yeah, there's a chance we test that volume imbalance and then move down. The VIX didn't quite hit where I wanted it to hit either. It's a little unfortunate. I'm thinking about moving my stop loss to give it a little bit of room again. In hopes that if we do hit the volume imbalance, I'll give it a few more ticks. Rather than being so perfect here. There's just not much going on here. Straddles now at about 36, 35 points, I believe. So it's definitely starting to decay away from the original 50 points that was priced in. I'm going to get hit. As soon as I get hit, it'll probably spool down. It's the problem with having such a poor entry. There's no other real news today. So the market's just gonna do what it's gotta do in terms of liquidity hunting. Right now, SPX is sitting at 68.38. Yep, I got ticked out as expected. And after I get ticked out, this will probably go. I'm just not willing to take that risk today. Especially not having a good read of markets and where my usual plays are. Which is off overnight highs and lows for the day. And even previous day highs and lows. So basically liquidity levels. And unfortunately, so I'll wait for it to kind of do its thing. I think it's moved to 68.25. And once we head there, we'll see if we're likely to get a bounce or something around that area. This is definitely going to go in my direction. What a shame. Ooh. So that was, I would say, a decent stop loss. Glad I didn't try to force a trade in. So this should run, I would think it runs through 68.60 now. There's really not much to say here for me, based on how I trade anyways, because the overnight low is the overnight low, and that's way down there. It's 40 points below from here, and typically I would try like a mean reversion trade if the dealer positioning supports it. Yeah, nothing really set up for me. That short actually played decently for about 10 some odd points, I believe. Yeah, maybe 10, just over 10 points. I didn't get my target, but it is what it is. VIX climbed to 2015, 20.15, and dropped a whole point. So we're at 19.15 now, 19.13. So we're just going to continue spooling up, I believe. And a run towards that 68, 90 level that we were talking about, where there's a ton of liquidity. Because the at the money straddle was pricing in a move there based on the open. So IV, the implied volatility, basically priced in that move. And not to mention the previous gap was there, and a swing low is sitting at around there too. So it seems to want to just gravitate towards there. All right, so the only thing I'm really looking for right now is the overnight high. Overnight high would be about 16 points from where we're currently at. So that'll take us to about 68, 82. That should be interesting. There is a node here that might cause a rejection. A pretty reasonable rejection right here off like a small node. It's a low value node. Yeah, aside from that, I'm really not looking for anything. So really just the potential short at that level. Going long, it's a tough one. Yeah, not seeing much. I'm on pause until liquidity's hit or something like that, or major setup that I see. Maybe some sort of high divergence. But I'm definitely not trying to short until something actually happens, like a liquidity grab. All right, so this was interesting. Looking at the option step dealer positioning. You can see 68.65, 68.70 was a decent spot to reject. Since there's like a small cluster here. But the one thing that really gave away a potential short scalp was a 5-minute. In the 5-minute chart, you don't see it here, but there's a 5-minute shooting star candle. And on NQ, you can see it a little bit better where it has a higher volume. And that was good for rejection. And mind you, the scalp is like worth 40 points right now. But who knows if that's all it goes. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Again, I'm not in love with this. I like this as a potential pullback. And then PM move to 68.90 maybe. But not married to any ideas right now. What's happening here? Why is this not working? It's interesting. Yeah, I definitely don't love anything here. Come down, retest. Will we go all the way down to 68.40? We definitely could, but at that point, I might be pretty bearish. But we've got a large fair value gap here. 5 minutes. Here to here. I'm gonna call this stream. Not likely to trade anyways.